The U.S. men's national team roster for the June international window has officially been announced. 27 players, and there is a lot to talk about. So let's jump right into it. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Alex. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video so you get to see more of these for the U20s and leading up to the World Cup. But let's jump right into this. There's a lot to talk about with this roster. We'll go position by position, talk about each position, and look at how this team might line up in these friendlies, and then maybe the Nations League. And other than that, we'll jump right into the goalkeepers. And as we're going through, I'm also going to compare them to what my predictions were for the roster. So for the goalkeepers, Greg did go with the best three American goalkeepers: Zach Steffen, Matt Turner, and Ethan Horvath. Who's going to be the number one? That is what remains up in the air. I think that this camp is going to be between Zach Steffen and Matt Turner, and they're both going to get opportunities to show why they should be the number one, and maybe someone will prevail, and maybe we'll come out of this camp having a number one, because right now it's up in the air. Me personally, I prefer Matt Turner. I don't think Zach Steffen is reliable enough, but that is up for interpretation. Gaga Slonina today announced that he has committed his international future to the United States, which is excellent news for American soccer. He is the number one of the future, but not of the present, because his form hasn't been the best. He's still only just turned 18 4 or 5 days ago. So we don't really need to worry too much about him being in this camp right now, but he is committed. He's in it for the long run. He's ours, never in doubt. He's the USMNT's to keep. On to the Centerbacks, and this is where the discussion really will start to begin. So Walker Zimmerman, he's a lock. He was always going to be here. Aaron Long, a lock, was always going to be here. I know not everyone wants to hear it that way. Next up, Eric Palmer-Brown. I'm a big fan of Eric Palmer-Brown. He did play as a right wing back at the Azteca, just kind of filling in there. That's his only previous appearance for Berhalter. Played pretty well. He's been having a really good season for Troyes in France, and he's absolutely worthy of this call-up. And I'm hoping he gets an opportunity to start one of the two friendlies over Aaron Long to make a push to be in the competition to start. I think he's good enough to do that. But will he get that opportunity? I'm not so sure. We'll come back to that when we talk about the lineup. Cameron Carter-Vickers, I guess with some of the injuries to the center back position, with Miles Robinson out, with John Brooks not in the picture, I guess Cameron Carter-Vickers comes into the conversation at that point. I'm not the biggest fan of him, but I'm not opposed to him getting a look, getting this opportunity, getting that run out. And I think there's a good chance that we see in one of the Nations League games, probably the Granada game, that we see CCV and EPB together, even if we're really not going to learn anything from that game. The absences, Mark McKenzie didn't make it. He hasn't been in the best form the last couple of months, hasn't nailed down the starting job at Genk, so I'm not surprised to not see him in this roster. Tim Ream, I think he's done with the national team. Unfortunately, he did have a very good season for Fulham, getting them back into the Premier League. Championship team of the season competitive, but didn't end up getting in this roster, so I think that's a sign that he's done. John Brooks, Greg is insisting that he's not done. He's not out of the picture, but yet another different excuse today. Another different excuse this time, and he is not in camp. I respect the decision. I'm sure he has a perfectly good reason for doing that, and it's probably for the benefit of the team that he's not here if he's not being called in. But as an outsider, we do not know what the reason is, and that can understandably be frustrating. And I do kind of wish we would get to find out why he's not in camp, but it is what it is. It doesn't look like it's going to happen. And there are plenty of good options here that can earn the starting job in the next couple of months. So I did get those predictions all right. On to the fullbacks, though. We've got 5, and I got 4 out of 5. One of my 2 mistakes in my prediction. I only had 2 mistakes, and one of them was this right here. So the 3 right backs, Reggie Cannon, Joe Scally, Djordje Yedlin all have earned their spots in this team, and I'm very excited to see all of them here. Anthony Robinson, of course, is the left back. And then the one I got wrong, George Bello is called back in, which I can't say I'm the biggest fan of. I don't think that he's been very good for Bielefeld. I don't think he was very good for Atlanta last season. I think he's someone who could be in the picture in the future, but I don't think he's necessarily ready yet, and I would have liked to take a look at an alternative option like a Kevin Paredes, who was in consideration for this camp but didn't make the final cut, or a Jonathan Gomez, who was heavily rumored, and there were some outlets reporting that he was going to get called up, and then he wasn't called up. But I don't expect George Bello to get a lot of minutes in this camp, and that is fine. Other than that, I expect Anthony Robinson to get the lion's share of minutes at left back, and the right back position, I think it'll rotate between those three. Djordje Yedlin, Reggie Cannon, and Joe Scally. On to the midfielders, and I got all these right, so let's jump right into the conversation. So the 2 6s are Adams and Acosta. Yeah, that was no real shockers there. There's really nobody who even touches them. Not even really anyone who comes close to competing for their spots on the team. As for the midfielders, Weston McKennie and Yunus Musa are, when everyone is healthy, the starters, the lock starters no less. Though it should be noted that Weston McKennie is recovering from injury and probably won't get a lot of minutes in the first 2 games, though the expectation is that he will start one of the Nations League games, hopefully, whether it be Grenada or El Salvador. I expect Yunus Musa is going to get a lot of minutes in central midfield, so that is going to be very exciting to see. Luca de la Torre, I think, will also get a good number of minutes as the next up, might even start at least one of the 2 friendlies when Weston McKennie is still out. And Christian Roldan is the vibes guy. He's there. I don't know if he's going to play, but he's there. So there's that. There are a couple other guys, 2 other guys to be precise, who were listed as midfielders, but I'm not sure they're going to play midfield in camp. So I've included them with the other positions. We'll come back to those in just a moment. And yeah, let's just go ahead. Let's jump straight into the wingers. So exactly as I predicted, there were 6 wingers called into camp. Brendan Aronson from RB Salzburg, Paul Arriola from FC Dallas, Djordje Mihailovic from Club de Foot Montreal, Jordan Morris from the Seattle Sounders, Christian Pulisic from Chelsea, and Timothy Weah from Lille. Yeah, I mean, these are the 6 that I was predicting were going to get called in, projected was going to get called in. Djordje Mihailovic finally gets a call-up after... It's been way too long. The first time that I called for him to be called in during World Cup qualifying was October. He didn't make the cut. November didn't get called up. January was in camp but didn't make the final roster for some reason. March just didn't get called up for some reason. And then he's finally here. Presumably because Gio Reyna is injured. He's here as a winger. I know he was listed as a midfielder, but Greg expects him to play on the wing. But he is really the standout name here. I think we know what we're getting with the rest of these guys. Christian Pulisic. He's Christian Pulisic. He has magic moments. He can do incredible things, but he goes through long spells where he's ineffective. Tim Weah, again, he's much better with the national team than he is for his club. He can contribute. He's an effective vertical player and can definitely probably be the starter for this group with Gio Reyna out. Paul Arriola has been in really, really good form for FC Dallas. I don't want to take anything away from him because he absolutely has earned his spot here. And in the past, he hadn't. But right now, he's absolutely earned this spot and will get some opportunities to shine in this camp. Brendan Aronson returns after missing the March camp through injury, and he played a really good role in World Cup qualifying, helping the U.S. get some points on the board in the early rounds. And he's back again. Well deserved, of course. Jordan Morris, I don't know. Like I said in my predictions, I think this is the camp where Djordje Mihailovic is going to take Jordan Morris' spot. And Jordan Morris has been a super sub for the men's national team in the last couple of windows. But there's not been very much that's been super about it. I mean, he's played in the last 6 World Cup qualifiers and really hasn't done anything at all. I am failing to think of a single contribution to World Cup qualifying that Jordan Morris made despite playing in the last 6 games. And he hasn't been very good for Seattle either, even though they did win the CONCACAF Champions League. So it is what it is. But look, I'm very excited to see Djordje Mihailovic. It is a long overdue call-up, and he's been performing at an MVP level for Montreal. We're a third of the way through the season, and he's the front runner for that award right now. But yeah, other than that, we'll see who gets the minutes. That, at the end of the day, is what's going to matter. On to the number 9 position. And yeah, Malik Tillman was listed as a midfielder in the roster. I put him in with the forwards here because I do think, while he might get some time as an 8, I don't think he's ready to play as an 8 for Berhalter yet, which is why I've put him in with the 9s. Yeah, I predicted all 3 of these, believe it or not. Jesus Ferreira, Malik Tillman. Had you right, is the 3rd striker. Jesus Ferreira, we'll start with him. He's the number 1 striker for the U.S. men's national team right now. He scored against Panama and he's leading the Golden Boot race in MLS. When was the last time you can say that about an American player? He has the most goals in MLS right now with 9. He's been absolutely killing it. Just got an assist to Paul Arriola in the last game. Those two could be linking up. They've got a really good combination, those two. So I'm really excited to see them together. Had you right? I actually need to give a shout out to someone here. I have a friend, Adam Akan. Way back in August of last year, he told me that Had You Right would be in the USMNT at some point. He told me that we're going to get a look at this guy at some point. And I thought he was crazy. Like, no, that's ridiculous. Well, here we are. He's called up. He's in camp, and it's well-deserved. Now, I wouldn't set the bar super high. I wouldn't expect this guy to be the solution. He's a pretty limited striker. He's a lot like a Giassi Zardes or a Jordan Pefok. He's pretty limited. And the Turkish league is not a very good level. It's a league that's regressed as a whole. But you never know. You never know. Maybe he can get some goals on the board. This is his chance to show why he should be going to the World Cup with the U.S. So we'll have to wait and see. As for Malik Tillman, his switch has been filed. I cannot lie, this is a surprise to me. When we heard a couple of weeks ago that Greg Berhalter was going to Munich to meet with Malik Tillman, I was like, well, this is a guy who's expressed no interest in representing the U.S. before, hasn't played for the U.S. since the U15 level. That was the Efrain Alvarez camp with Gio Reyna, Gianluca Buzio, and Djordje Bello, and it was so long ago. I was really surprised that he did decide to file the switch. But here we are. Malik Tillman is a U.S. men's national team player. He's locked in. There's no going back. He will play for the United States, not Germany. And this is great news. Alright, so here is a lineup I think that we will see probably for the first game. I think for the Morocco game and maybe the Uruguay game, he's going to go close to full strength for both. So let's just kind of go again, position by position, and look at who's probably going to start in these games. So for the goalkeeper, I went with Matt Turner because I think it's a toss-up right now, but I prefer Matt Turner. And I think both Turner and Stefan are going to get opportunities. They might even start 2 games each. We'll have to wait and see. We'll go on to the center backs, and I think Long and Zimmerman is like the starting pairing of this roster. I think, like I said, Carter Vickers and Palmer Brown will probably get to start that Grenada game together, and maybe one of them will start in El Salvador. But I think for the first 2 games, I'm happy to be proven wrong, but I think it'll be Long and Zimmerman. That being said, I'm hopeful that we will get to maybe see a Palmer Brown and Zimmerman pairing, because I think that's a really good duo. As for the fullbacks, Anthony Robinson, like I said, is going to play most of the minutes at left back. DeAndre Yedlin, Reggie Cannon, and Joe Scally are probably all going to get minutes at right back. I went with Yedlin just because he's the most experienced, but it could very well be Reggie Cannon. And, Joe Scally will almost definitely start that Grenada game, and maybe we'll get some more opportunities. Maybe he'll even get some minutes at left back, which will be very interesting to see. On to the midfield. Tyler Adams is the starter at the 6. I expect him to start 2 to 3 of the 4 games. Yunus Musa also is a lock starter for the U.S. men's national team and will get most of the minutes as the right-sided central midfielder. As for the left-sided midfielder, I think this is the one position that's going to flip-flop between the first two friendlies. I think Helen Acosta will start one of them, and maybe it'll be the Uruguay game, I don't know. But I also think Luca de la Torre is going to start one of those two as well as an 8. I do think that Luca and Musa are very similar players, so I don't think these two are necessarily the best pairing together. We'll give it another look against some high-level World Cup quality opposition, so with Weston McKennie not ready to start, most likely, it's very great to see that. As for the wingers, I think Christian Pulisic will definitely start the first two games. I don't know what his status is going to be for the second two games. I'll come back to that with a note right at the end. Tim Weah on the right wing will probably start the first game, and Jesus Ferreira is the shoe-in for the 9 right now. I think Hadji Wright will probably start one game and come off the bench a little bit. Malik Tillman is probably going to start Granada and then get minutes elsewhere, maybe some in midfield, some at the 9. Djordje Mihailovic, who I talked about before, I think he'll probably start on the wing against Granada and then maybe get some minutes elsewhere. I don't know if he's going to get minutes in the first two games, but I hope he does because he is a really, really good player. Yeah, one note that I just wanted to mention that I haven't seen reported, and I don't think Berhalter addressed it. There's a possibility, again, I don't know how true this is, it's kind of just something that's been floating around, is that after the first two games, some players might leave camp and some other guys might come in. So I saw Jonathan Gomez, those rumors potentially that he would be in the Nations League. I think theoretically it's still possible that he comes in for the two Nations League games and someone, maybe Anthony Robinson, leaves camp because he has to get surgery. And maybe someone like a Christian Pulisic will leave after the first two games. I don't know who would necessarily come in, but I wouldn't rule out there being some changes to the roster after the first two games. But with all that being said, let me know what you think of the roster, right? As for videos leading up to these friendlies, I don't know what's going to happen because for the first two games, I'm not going to be in Chicago. I'm going to be out of town, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, let me know what your thoughts are and who missed out. Who would you like to see in the next roster? Thank you for watching, though. I'll see ya.